So we're going to be going over how to make movement maps, or I guess any maps in Deadlock for the number of game modes that we support. We support like B-Hop, we support Tag, we support No Stam, and Climb, which is basically what KZ would be in Deadlock. And I'm going to show you guys how the Hammer Editor works, how to make a very basic map, and then hopefully that gives you enough information to go out and make your own maps, and then hopefully in the future we can foster a community where kind of like how Steam has the workshop when we have all of our movement maps. So this is just a preface. I said this before, but I didn't say it in the video. I'm going to be skipping the installation process for downloading CSDK 12. CSDK 12 is basically all the modding content for Deadlock. As you can see, it says Deadlock Workshop Tools. Includes stuff like Source 2 Filmmaker, the Hammer Editor, the Material Editor, all that good stuff that's from CS2 SDK. But it's all modified for Deadlock. The thing is, it's a very long installation process, which I don't want to take up too much time into making here. So I'm going to link a video in the VOD that goes up, and to the people who are currently watching in the event on an installation process. You can either watch this video or you could download it on the Deadlock modding website, the modding notes. Either way is, I'm assuming the modding notes would be more up to date. Not really. When was this one posted? This was actually more up to date, but it's the same process. But just a little preface. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Regretful Curve. I've made the first No Stam map, which it's gone through many processes. As you can see, there's so many updates. This was back when No Stam was. I first made it from modding Deadlock from the VData. So I made this map, which is kind of depreciated right now. But I also made PP Arrow, which is a viscous puddle punch map, which has yet to be supported on Mock, but is on the map list mod that we made. But essentially, I'm going to go through the process of making a map. I'm going to go through the very basics, and if you guys have any questions along the way, I'll make sure to answer them. So, assuming that you have CSDK 12 installed, it's going to look like this. And when you open it up, you're going to be a little bit confused on everything. But for now, we're just going to be opening CSDK 12, the CSDK as CFG. And that'll bring up a menu like this. And this also looks pretty intimidating, but really all you have to worry about is make sure that you're on bin. Bin is for working with all of the modding tools. Bin server is for like starting your own Deadlock server to test things like on the map. And then bin tools is kind of, I wouldn't really use bin tools. It has a lot of use cases, but none that we're going to be going over today. Make sure you don't change anything over here. Make sure it's all what it is here. Because if you change some of the stuff, it might crash your modding tools. But I'm just going to go over and create a new add-on. And you really want to name your add-on what you have in mind for your map. So when you're thinking of a map, well, usually it can either come, the name comes when you first make your map and you have an idea, or when you're on the designing part of your stage of your map, and then you get that name. But I'm just going to type in, we're going to make a No Stam map. So you'll notice over here that maps have a prefix in front of them. So you have like the B-Hop prefix, and then you have the No Stam prefix, and you have the Puddle Punch prefix. So make sure to follow that kind of naming standard, just for yourself, but also if you're going to be sharing your mod, that it'll be recognizable by other people what kind of map it is. So you create a new add-on. We're gonna make a no stand map and then underscore, and we could just come up with a completely random name. I'm gonna do just modding map. Then you click create, and you'll see down here that'll make a new add-on for you. And then you just have to press launch tools. And for the first time that you do this, it's gonna take a while, and you might get some pop-ups like saying to allow Deadlock to work. So it will take a bit for it to load up. You see this will pop up, and then you'll see a bunch of other windows pop up, like the V console over here. And these are for me. You guys probably won't get those pop-ups. And you'll see the asset browser will show up. And the asset browser is how you interact with all the tools that you have. So you can see you have the hammer editor, material editor, model doc, particle editor, source 2 filmmaker, the workshop manager. So you see all of this. This is basically just showing you what is all within your add-on. So if I go back to here and I go to content, Citadel add-ons, and I go to no stand modding map, it'll basically be whatever is packed with the game and also with my add-on here will show up here. But we want to make a map, so we're going to be pressing the hammer editor. So we just click this button up here, and then you'll be loaded into this blank screen. All you have to do is go up to File, and then New, and it'll show up like this. So the first thing that you want to do, you can't really figure out, like it just looks like a blank screen. I would go to this block tool and just scroll down to here. Just drag open a block. And then you can see up here it says press enter to complete the geometry. So I'm just going to press enter. And then on this screen over here, you hold right click to move around your screen. And then you can use the WASD keys to orient your screen, which is a bunch of different other camera controls, but that's kind of like the main controls that I use when I'm making maps. As you can see, I have like the default texture, and this is how big the block is in hammer units. So like the main dimensions are hammer units, which is 256 by 256. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger so we have an example. Here we go. Does anyone have any questions so far on this part of the lesson? Yep. So there's a few main things that you want to put on your map, specifically for spawning in Deadlock players or just Deadlock entities. So for movement maps, you don't really have to worry about like camps or maybe sometimes zip lines, but you don't have to worry about like objectives or anything like that. Really, all you have to worry about is spawn points for entities. So the entity tool is right above the block tool. All you have to do is click it, and then you can place it down here. You'll see this little dude show up. So if you want spawn points in your map, all you have to do is go down here and type in, I think it's Citadel underscore, and it's team. It's info team spawn. And then you'll see this little gizmo pop up. Just a note for when you're placing down spawn points that you want to raise them a little bit above the ground. Because if you leave them like this, there's a good chance that your character will glitch into the ground. So you just want to make sure to raise them a little bit. PP arrow broken right now? I haven't tested, to be honest. I do know that the one that Mindscape was broken for a little bit, but I don't know if PP arrow is broken. But you want to raise it up from the ground a little bit, and then you can see down here you have 3 different teams. What I would do is make a copy, which you can just Control C and Control V. Just copy and paste 2 more times. And then if you want to multi-select, you can hold Shift and then raise them up from the ground. And then you can see this one is Team Rebels or North or Amber. Then I would make this one Team Combine South Sapphire. And then this one Team Neutral. Just to make sure that you cover all the grounds and make sure that no matter what, someone is going to spawn in on the map. Just make sure they are a little far apart. Just in case if you play with multiple people, you don't want them clipping in to each other. A nice thing to notice is also with the team spawns, you can pick the hero that shows up. So for example, if I look for hero Lash, Lash will show up, and you can kind of use this to gauge like the size of your map, because it is accurate to what it is showcasing. So if you look at Lash and then you look at the size of your map, it'll give you a good reference to how big your map is. Because it would be a problem in other like in Source 1 Hammer. Sometimes you would make your map and it'd be a lot bigger than you thought it would be, especially when you're like starting out and you don't understand hammer units. So this is a nice little cheat to understand how big your map is. Does anyone have any questions up to here? Is there a list of all the available object classes outside of the search box? Well, most of the time when you're using entities, all of them will show up in the class box. So you can see every single different entity shows up here. Other than that, for like custom making classes, that's going to be outside the range of this video. Is it a spreadsheet? No, but we're going to be working on it. I kind of had my own. Someone asked if there was a spreadsheet on how many units of dash jump dash is. I haven't really. I tested a little bit with edge boosting and corner boosting, but what I learned from just approximate is that when you see these reflectivities, like this material texture, it is actually really useful for approximating like vertical distance or just distance in general. So I learned that you can mantle up to 2 blocks or 2.5 blocks. And then you can wall jump up to 4 blocks, I'm pretty sure. Or it's 3.5. So that's a pretty good reference to like if you don't want to make it so that someone can just wall jump up to here, you can make it like 4 or 5. So that's just a good reference to have in the future. But really, you're going to be testing your map a lot. So we're just going to make a regular... Oh, there's one more thing I have to put in here. To get lighting in your map, make sure that you place down a lights underscore environment. This will help you make it so that your map isn't completely just how it looks right now, where it's full bright. Because if you go up here to where it says full bright, and then you go down to all lighting, and then you can see how the light environment interacts with your map, which is really useful for Source 2. Because in Source 1 you couldn't do this. But if you rotate this, you can change the direction of the sun. And then if you click on it and go down to these, you can change how bright the sun is. You can change the color of the sun. which most of the time I'm going to be using like a warmer like white or blue. All depends on what kind of map you're making. So I'll set it to something like that. And then you can make sure, by the way, make sure that all of this is set to dynamic. So make sure that this is set to dynamic, and then also in shadows it's set to dynamic and baked. Because if it's baked, it'll look really weird on anything that isn't the map. So any entities, any models, any players will have this weird shading on them. So make sure that your light environment is set to dynamic and baked. But you can also change the shadows, the specular, style. Most of these you're not gonna most of the time you're just gonna be editing the direct light, shadows, and sky. Because you can also add a sky to your map, which to do that you go to the entity tool, you place it down, it's environment underscore sky. And this will put a default skybox into your map. So what you can do is you can click this plus icon down here. You can open local browser, which brings up this. And all you have to do really is just type in sky. Well, I guess I should do something like sky model. Sky model will bring up a few. If you want the Deadlock ones, there's somewhere up here, which is kind of because they're called light underscore test. So that's a little bit annoying. Or you could do sky underscore DL. You can also find those Deadlock skyboxes. So I'm just going to choose something like dusk, which kind of already fits my lighting that I have. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. Oops. Yeah, adjust my lighting a little bit. See if the eyedropper tool helps. I'm going to lower the lighting too, because the lighting is not matching with the background. I think something like that would work. Yep, and then you just kind of start working on your map, which really is just kind of like a creative process, but I'm going to show you some of the building tools that you can do. Can I import skyboxes from source 1 image to source 2? If you have the image for it, yes you can, but make sure it's not in... You want to make your materials inside of your SDK tools, and specifically for source 2. So when you go to your content folder, you want to make a new folder called materials. And then inside of it, let's say you had a picture, like I'm just going to use this random screenshot that I have. I would name it something like, you just have to take into account for the resolution, but I'm not going to do that right now. So you name it something like sky model underscore my map. It could be a PNG or a JPEG, but I think it mostly works with PNGs. So then what you could do is you can go to the asset browser, go to material editor, which will bring up something like this. And then you open up a new one. And I think you go to, you can just put in the, first you have to save it. It's first and foremost. Go to materials, call it sky model underscore my map. Just gotta give it a second. Here we go. And then you open the image that you have, which will show up on the map, but right now it's not going to work for me because my resolution's not It has to be a resolution. It has to be like 512 by 512 or 1048, I think. It has to be a square resolution, so it won't work. But that's kind of the gist. There's a couple. A thing to keep in mind is that most of the CS2 most of the CS2 tutorials will be mostly the same to what we're doing here. So if you have a problem in this, like the Deadlock Hammer editor, you could always look up a CS2 tutorial, which will most likely give you the same answer that you're looking for. So if you really want to learn how to import your own skyboxes, you can just look up a CS2 Hammer tutorial on how to import materials or how to import skyboxes. It'll most likely be the same thing. The only thing that might be different is the directory, but most of what you're putting in is in your Studio add-ons and then your map folder. So I'm going to show you guys how to, before I move on to some of the mapping tools, like the actual modeling tools. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? Okay. So we have the standard block tool, which is what you're going to be using for most of your maps, I would assume, which is very easy to use. You have two modes to edit the block tool. You have your select tool, which allows you to reshape it in all the axes. And then you have your translate tool, which allows you to move it on the grid. Which sometimes it goes off the grid if it's depending on the size of it. So most of the time I just use the select tool. But there's a lot of other tools you can use on a block. So I'm going to make this a little bit taller. About this tall. And then you also have the clipping tool, which you can use to make edges on the side of your blocks. So what you do is you basically come up to the block and then you get to the edge of it and then you drag it across, which will make a clip of the block. And then you can choose from up here which side you want to keep. So for this side, it'll keep down here, on this side up here, and then both, if for some reason you want to keep both. And then you can also cap the new surface, which basically adds a face onto the side that you cut off, which I think it also does when you do this on the inside. So I'm going to keep mine like this. I just press enter, and now I suddenly have a slope, which you can also do the same thing by doing. I'm going to basically do the same thing. Make it a little bit taller. If I select this and then I go up here, you have the vertices, edges, faces, meshes. I'm going to click the edge tool, which allows you to select the edges of some of your blocks. I'm going to take this edge up here. I'm going to go back to my select tool, my translate tool, and I'm just going to move this down. So as you can see, it moves down this edge and keeps the face as well. So there's two methods to do that kind of stuff. This one's probably going to be more used in a precise, if you're trying to make complex shapes. This one's just going to be used if you're trying to make slopes. We can change every aspect of your block to make unique shapes. And then you can also do this with vertices. So I can click the corner of this and move this down while this is still up. You can do it with faces too. So I can pull this face out. Or if I press, I forget, there's a keybind for this, but I can also extend from this. I think it's think it's control. Yeah. If you hold shift, it follows the grid. If you hold control, it's more freeform. And then there's a few other things that you can do. You have displacements, which I haven't used too much. They're a little hard to use. Well, not really, but you can create displacements by making a block and then selecting it. Then use displacements to there's a lot of different tools for displacements, which I haven't really used. Helps when you have more vertices on your face. So subdivision. You subdivide it. Subdivision helps you create more cuts on your block. Specifically, I did it for this face. And then I can kind of, I can't really edit it this way, but it's for displacements anyways, which creates bumps like this, which you can change the settings for all of this. I forget what the, yeah, if you hold control, it caves it in, which is, this is very, I would say this is more intermediate level kind of tools. So I won't worry too much about this. But that's just to keep in mind when you're working on a map. Oh, I'm still in. So as you can see, I'm kind of just making a ramp. I'm just gonna make a very simple map to show you guys how it works. So I'm gonna extend this a little bit. So there's a bunch of other things you can put on your map. Like I can put in a light underscore omni 2, which is kind of like a point light, which allows you to basically create a floating light point. As you can see over here, I can change the settings down here, which you can choose lumens. You can kind of experiment with these. Most of the times I use lumens. And then you can go to direct light, increase the brightness, change the color, change the fall off of it, so you can create a more kind of like spotlight compared to a more fuzzy light. And you can change the range of it, which I can do like two. I can have it as big as like 5,000. But most of the time you're gonna keep it pretty close to what you're making. There's other things you can make. A lot of the time you're gonna be using props, which will be prop static, prop dynamic. And if you preload your CSDK12 with the Deadlock props, you can use any of those props in the game, which you can see here. So I can add something like, let's add a pillar, which you can see it spawns it in here. And I can move this over. If you want to rotate, you can press R, or you can press up here to the rotate button. I'm just rotate it 90 degrees. Move it back a little bit. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Like you can see, we can have a Deadlock prop in here. And then you can also use, so like since the side's not filled, I'm just going to use a block to fill in the rest of it. Put this all the way up. And then if you want to change your materials, you also get preloaded with the Deadlock material, so you can look for like a brick material. Usually you want to match it up with what you have here. And I can just drag it on. Doesn't match up perfectly, but it's good enough for what we're doing. Move it down a little bit. And then you can also change like the color of it. Say you want that color of brick. We want this color of brick. Which doesn't really work, so I'm just gonna use white. So grab that. And then sometimes when you're using Deadlock models, you might have to create a clip for it because it doesn't have a physical clip for it. To do that, there's a bunch of different clipping tools you can use. But we're just going to make a block around this. Kind of make sure to cover most of it while being accurate. So I'll move this out a little bit. So that might not work. So that's good enough. And I'm going to go to, most of your tools are going to be under tools. I'm looking specifically for the no draw option. Or the, I guess what would be better was player clip. Drag this and then you put it on. And basically what this tells the engine is you don't want to render this block, but you want to make it so that players cannot pass this block. So when your player's playing, they won't get stuck on all the small little details like the divots here. Or if like the wall is uneven, they won't get slowed down. So that helps with like optimization in your map to make sure it's a smooth experience. And that just comes with testing your map to see what's working and what's causing glitches. So does anyone have any questions so far to what we're doing? Yep. And there's a bunch of other tools you can use. The skybox tool, a pretty popular one. I guess it would be tool sky. You can use this whenever you don't want your player to get outside of the map, which all it will do is render the skybox. But really in Source 2, you can use just like a normal like no draw, but no draw is more used for optimization. So the way I'm doing it right now is pretty unoptimized, but I'm just showing you guys how to get started with your map. So now the player, they can jump on this, but they won't be able to get out of the map and fall basically into nothingness. Maybe once up here, they can like jump up here, so I'd probably add a roof on it as well. So there you go. So now, basically, it's like, what if I get to this point and I'm like, oh, I want to test out this part of the map to make sure that it works correctly. So all you have to do is save your map, and it'll bring up this screen, and you just type in, you know, what you want it to be named. So we called it ns_modding map. So you save it. You can close out of this. And then what you want to do is you want to go to back to this screen, which is the regular folder for CSTK12. You want to click, make sure this is still open, by the way. Don't close out of CSTK12 yet. Go to GUI map compiler and click on CST map compiler, which will bring up this. Just click continue. And then there's a few things that we have to change on here. If you just want to fast compile is not going to compile any of the lighting. So it's just going to make it completely flat lighting. And then full compile will be with all of your lighting. That's mostly what you want to do. Final compile is basically when you're done with everything and you want to ship your map, you would do final compile. But a full compile is still pretty accurate to what you might be wanting. But the first thing you want to do is you want to go up to here where it says custom path. You want to click on it. And then you want to go to back where your thing is here. And you want to go to game, bin CS2, Windows 64, and then click cs2.exe. You can say tools found, game found, cs2.exe. And then you go down here to open vmap. You're going to find your folder for your map. Go into maps, and then ns modding map vmap. Now, if you clicked full compile, you should have everything set up for you. The only thing I would change is visibility, because in Deadlock specifically, visibility can be hard to put into your map. It's a pretty intermediate like map optimization thing. And a lot of the times when you have bigger maps, it will cause some visual errors on your map. So I would just disable this. It doesn't have too much impact on your map unless if you have a lot of detail, which in case you'll probably be like an intermediate to advanced mapper at that point. So you'll know the optimization techniques. But for beginner, we're just going to disable visibility, and then we click compile. And you just have to wait for all of this to run its course, which it will take a little bit. And you see, okay, 18 compiled. That means it's done. So you can exit out of this. And the last thing we have to do, which is just kind of a specific thing to keep in mind, is you go back onto CSDK12, you go to the Counter-Strike 2 Workshopping Manager, which will bring up a menu like this. You click New, and then for title and description, you can name it whatever. And for preview image, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're coming up to here, making sure that everything's in your add-on, and then you just press submit. It will say publish error, but that is completely fine because it will still do what we need it to do, which is if you look in game Citadel add-ons, down here you'll see this VPK, which is nsmoddingmap.vpk. That is the one we're going to be putting in our game. So we can close out of this. We can close out CSDK12. Now you can either test it in-game or you could test it with bin server, but my bin server is kind of broken. So I'm going to be testing it in-game. So you kind of go to Steam, and then when you go to Deadlock, go to Manage, Browse Local Files. Make sure that you have your gameinfo.gi set up to allow mods, or else it won't show up. Which you can kind of look that up, and I hope you guys already know how to do that if you have played the movement maps before. We go to Game, Citadel, Add-ons, and then I'm going to be putting in my map, which you can kind of just cut and paste. And I'm going to rename it to, since I already have Pack02 and Pack01, I'm going to be renaming it to Pack03 _dir. Which I guess you can also load this up in Deadlock Mod Manager, but I prefer doing it the manual way. Will there be a VOD for this? Yes, there will. So once you do that, you can load up your game, which this will take a little bit. Now to preface, if you didn't put testing tools in your map, you will have to do it before you load your map. But I didn't do it because you don't require it. Like if we're putting it on MOG servers, you don't require the testing tools. This is just for testing on your own personal server. So when you load into the game, it'll be doing, if you just type testing and you come down here to Citadel underscore hero underscore testing underscore enabled true, just put that in. And then to load up your map, you get to do map and then ns underscore should have shown up. What did I do wrong? Should have shown up here. Let's go back. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna put all of these into archive. I'm gonna reload my game. Oh, you know what happened? I didn't update my I guess I will show you how to adjust your game info.gi because I didn't update it for this latest patch. To do that, you need to find, where is it? Right here. No, right here. And I have my own backup one, my add-ons folder, I think. At least I used to. Is it up here? No. So I'm gonna have to look it up. Right here. Let's go over here. Just copy and paste that. Save it. And load up the game. What's my method is really like me having to load up the game is really time consuming. So I'm hoping that your guys' bin server works because for some reason mine doesn't. So let's type in the testing thing again. And then map ns underscore modding map. And then for this, when you're loading up on a custom map, you have to do testing and then load up your map again. Here we go, and then swap hero.
You see, not everyone can handle the weight of being the best fighter on God's green earth.
Thought that would have worked, but I guess not. I guess the sandbox stuff is different in Source 2. As you can see, everything else that we loaded in is working as intended. As you can see, we have the correct boundings on the pillar here, so our players ain't getting stuck on that little lip there. Most of everything's working as intended. I thought the skybox would have created the clip, but no, I guess you have to use play clip in you have to use the play clip in Source 2. Yeah, this is basically how you're gonna be testing your map, which you can use the no stam mod, or you can just test it without using stamina. Or if you're making a B-hop map, you can ask to get a fork of the B-hop B-hop script and test it out that way. So the note for the B-hop maps is that I think they're upsized for Deadlock. So that means that the maps are actually smaller than they appear on the MOG servers. And for tag, you can also just do it normally. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? But that basically accounts for most of how to get started making maps. Because this is going to be your main workflow of making it in Hammer, and then rendering it, and then exporting it, and then testing in game, and then going back and testing all the different methods. usually try and get a few playsetters during different iterations. I usually try to get a coherent design first, because I do a lot of testing myself, because I can kind of test out different things. Maybe if you're trying to figure out the edge boost or like corner boost or something, which are kind of hard. Straight blocks, but usually I do my own testing. Then I used to do a lot of play testing back when it was like a new thing. But what you can always do is if you're in the Discord, you can go to the bhop, the climb, no stam tag. You can kind of ask if anyone wants to test your map, or you can show screenshots of your upcoming map and share with the community. And if they're down for it, they can playtest it. We could also host it on MOG servers on like the no stam, because we're always looking for new maps too. How do I remove the ability to wall jump off a wall? That's pretty difficult. That's going to require some vpulse, but we mostly handle that stuff on the MOG servers through the game mode manager. So you can do it through vpulse, but it's going to work a lot better if we host it on MOG. Or you can use the no stam mod to play the no stam hero, because that I think that only has one wall jump, or no wall jumps, I forget. Does anyone have any more questions before I close out the class? If a general person, I had to decide how specific a map should be. I kind of go, so when I was making my first map, like bhop is specific, it all depends on the game mode, on like the specific tech. Like for bhopping, you want to focus on, like platform spacing and different techniques. For no stam, you're kind of focusing on corner boosting and edge boosting and all different types of techniques. You kind of want to account for anything a player might try to skip. So like they might try to just corner boost off of this if you put like a platform over here. So you kind of just want to test like every single avenue and make a course fit the type of route or game mode that you're trying to do. You make a surface is not working Deadlock. The thing with Deadlock, base Deadlock, surfing is almost impossible, because we know the surfing on the mid ledges, but to surf traditionally like you would think CSGO surf is not possible in Deadlock without modding, which we have yet to develop, because it'll take a lot of testing to make it accurate to Counter-Strike surfing. Technically, you can in current Deadlock. It's really bad, so when we do bhop surfs, you have to adjust the angle based off of our bhop settings. So when we make surf maps or the surf game mode, we'll probably have data on like the ramps, like the ramp angles and distance that you have to do. But we'll try to make it as accurate as we can to surf, like CS surf, as we can. So this kind of was just an introduction to mapping and the workflow behind it. So hopefully it removes the scare factor of making a map. so that you guys can just install CSDK 12, make a map in Hammer, test it out, and then hopefully we get a lot more movement maps than what we currently have now.